are supposed to be there to serve and protect, and the people that we pay our tax dollars to, um, doing something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was this one hit me harder than, I've seen so many of these videos, and you question your view of it after you hear so much of it. You question, like, are you seeing it right? Because the other side of America sees it as sometimes justified, and then you question yourself, is it, well, at least me, I question myself as, well, maybe I'm not seeing it the way everyone else is seeing it. Maybe I'm seeing it too black, you know. Maybe I'm putting too much black into it, and it's not like that, But when I saw, like, the Philandro Castile, his, it was, that's me, If I told somebody I had a concealed weapons permit, that's what I'm supposed to do, And then I reach into my glove compartment and get the stuff that we normally do, the normal stuff when you get pulled over and you get shot because the person was felt threatened. And then then all that happens, and then we move past it, and it happens again and again and again. And I think what makes this one so important is that no one couldn't deny this one. No one can take it away from the situation. No one can say this never happened, or why did he do this? Why didn't he do this? And they still say it. They still say he shouldn't resist. Those kind of things. But they couldn't deny it because it was on the film from start to finish, and there was really nothing, to back up their claims of this is okay. With that being said, I just felt heavy in my heart that I had to continue to address it, because I know right now, especially we're coming off the COVID situation and how that's affecting Black people also, it's like, what is hitting us? What's continuing to hit us? Why are we getting all these attacks again, in our society or in our culture? And why is nobody and this is where I'm gonna bridge this at, but I'm gonna stop at that point. Why is no one addressing it in the home and the church home? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's not being addressed. It's just because it's happening so often. Why is it not widespread in the Christian community? Like, if we're saying we're Christian, why is it not being talked about in churches and across the railroad tracks, on both sides? If we're all Christian sisters and brothers, because when it's time to vote, everybody wants everyone to be on their side, and they claim those Christian values and stuff like that, and you should vote for this. But when it comes down to the reality of it, a lot of times we're left out to dry or hang dry because we don't have any buy-in. We don't have any, there's no value, from at least from my point of view. They don't see a value of us enough to address those things. So that's how I feel about it. And then as we can go into protest, we get the protests. That's great, right? And then it becomes riots and looting.
Yep.
And then that's where the line starts drawing. My girlfriend is mixed. Mom's white, dad's Black. You know what I'm saying? So you look at that and you think, okay, maybe I'm looking at it too harsh as a Black man. Maybe I'm playing victim, as they say. But then when her viewpoint is always echoing mine. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's culture, maybe it's just how you grow up. I don't have a lot of run-ins with police, and I worked for them 7 years. So I was a deputy, so I know the ins and out of what they do. But I also know that there's racism in all forms of life. So how do we separate the protests from the riots and looting in our minds, our hearts, and even just trying to educate people about it? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's where a big issue comes in is where can we separate it? And I think that's really what happens is the cause gets hijacked by the rioting and looting that people then turn that knob off
Yeah.
and say, all right, I heard this, I heard this. Okay, but now you're doing this, so I'm not even going to bother with it. And I think that's the biggest problem because at the end of the day, the root of the issue and the problem is the social injustice,
Yeah.
the issues that are happening against Black America.
Yeah.
And that's the root of the problem. And I think sometimes what happens is when it gets hijacked by one, for whatever reason it is, there's a lot of things that start out with a good mindset, a good track, mind thought, whatever somebody wants to do. But then somewhere along the line, it gets hijacked by something. And then now what you want and what you were talking about, what you really want to do, now it doesn't even really exist because people don't see that. And I think
Exactly.
that's really what happens is when that happens. But what people aren't realizing is in this specific incident is that the rioting and looting is not just from African Americans. It's
Yes.
not like, okay, we're protesting, we're rioting, we're looting, and it's only us. No, 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 no. There's more to it. And I think that's the other part that people aren't seeing. They hear rioting, they hear looting. Okay, well, they want this cause, so it's them doing it. It's not really all of us doing it. There's other causes. Again, what people don't understand. People are being bussed into different cities that don't even live in that city. So the people that are burning stuff down may not be the people that are living there.
Yeah.
So it's not even them that are doing it to their own neighborhood. But again, it gets hijacked because you hear the word rioting, looting. Okay, well, they're burning up their own buildings. I grew up right outside of Baltimore. I live near Baltimore now. I work in Maryland. And when all those issues were going on down in Baltimore with Freddie Gray case, that's what happened. They were busing people into Baltimore, and then the rioting and looting happened. The other issue is I think it's kind of like a perfect storm that we're sitting in, that we got COVID-19 going on and then George Floyd going on, which means people are sitting at home.
Yeah.
They don't have nothing much to do. The second thing is that people are struggling financially.
Yeah.
And you open up an opportunity. I'm not saying it's right, but there's going to be people that take that opportunity to better themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the selfish part of it. Do I agree with it? Absolutely not. But can I fault some people if they felt strongly about it? No, because if you haven't been oppressed, if you haven't had to have this and live with this issue for your entire life, you're not going to understand it. So I don't expect, the white culture to understand why. Does it make it right? Absolutely not. But there's a reaction to every action.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make that reaction right. And I think the rioting and looting came from the action, which we need to talk about, which is the senseless killing of a man, which literally sat on his knee. I mean, he had his knee in his neck. 8 minutes, man. We can't get past that. And I get, some people want to kind of bring up certain points to kind of say, hey, you shouldn't have put yourself into that situation, da 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 da. You're absolutely right. He shouldn't have put himself in that situation. But at the end of the day, that doesn't make the action any more stomachable for me, because no person deserves to lose their life. And you're sitting here when a man's saying that he can't breathe, but yet you're going to sit there. And it's not just you. It's not one officer. We're talking about officers. We're sitting there with him.
Yeah.
While people are sitting there watching, and none of them decided to say, you know what, man, like, we need to get off of them.
Yeah.
Like, not one person, not one of those officers.
And
that's
that speaks
wrong.
volumes.
And
that speaks volumes.
I went to school for. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying that speaks volumes of where they are in their culture, of the police culture, is that I'm not going to speak out on anything that may seem wrong, because I remember, and I don't care what nobody says about how I feel about it or what they can say about me, but it was always a saying when I worked there, was like, even when we're wrong, we're right. And I never understood that until I got out of it, you know what I'm saying? And thinking about, okay, so if you do something wrong, No one's going to tell you that you're wrong on your wearing the same colors, you know, because you're going to be considered right, you know. But when it comes to somebody's life, it changes. If you're talking about, I made a mistake and I pulled the wrong person over, but I let him go with a warning. You were wrong for that. You know what I'm saying? I didn't mean to pull him over. I meant to pull the other guy over. I pulled the wrong guy over. You know, that kind of thing. You were wrong. But I'm never going to admit that. But when it comes to somebody's life, you can't have that kind of mentality, because if you do, and I want to just make this point because I've had so many conversations with people about this, and it's going to drive the conversation. So many people go to black on black crime, which doesn't exist. Crime exists. It just happens to be black people. It happens to be white people. It happens to be whatever color they are. Crime exists, and we all know that. But people want to say black on black crime whenever we talk about injustices with people who have authority and should be held to a higher standard. If they weren't held to a higher standard, we wouldn't have no issue with it. It would just be a crime. But when you expect someone, because I tell you this, had that girl saw someone fighting and the guy was trying to kill it, and then she knew the guy, she would have did everything she can to try to stop that. But the only reason she only filmed it is because she expected that person who was on top of him to do the right thing, because they're appointed to do the right thing for people. So why would you not hold them at a certain degree of accountability for doing something that they should know how to do as a professional? It doesn't matter if they got the right amount of training or the wrong amount of training. Right is wrong. You know what I mean? Right is right, wrong is wrong at the end of the day. But if you make the decision to take someone, not let me say make the decision, if you take someone's life in the line of duty, you have to have a conscience to say, oh my gosh, I messed up. That guy, I'm sorry, that video, he looked blank as all, like this was a norm. He didn't care. Now, he may have had all the thoughts in his mind, but from what I saw, it was just a blank stare. Like he did not care about that person. So with that being said, imagine that happening to your family member and you're standing there. What do you do? Do you just allow it to happen? Or do you film it? Or do you do something about it? More likely, you're probably going to do something about it, and you'll probably end up in jail and everybody got to get bonded out, but everyone lived. You get what I'm saying? But in this situation, why do we have to break down the police to do their job? Why do we have to sit there and rally for them to do their job properly, or to do their job in the way of preserving life, versus if you do something wrong, you have the fear of dying because you did something wrong and you should never have to encounter the police? Sounds like a gang to me. Sounds like I'm riding down the road and I shouldn't go into the right neighborhood, go in the wrong neighborhood and then turn, and it has to be a gang there. So that's what happened. That's what it sounds like. I mean, if you think about it, the situation happened. I would not encounter the police if I wouldn't did anything wrong. But what if I didn't do anything wrong? What if they thought, or they just felt I did something wrong? And then next thing you know, they're at my window or pulling me up, and saying, hey, get on the ground. And I'm like, why? We cannot question them. You see what I'm saying? It's just basic stuff that we should be able to have in America, which is supposed to be the land of free. They give us all these, they claim all these rights until one of us dies. Then it's all, well, you should have did this. They have all these people saying what should have happened, and they defend it to the end. But when we defend it, we got black on black crime we got to worry about. That's the only thing we need to focus on is our black on black crime. And it's only seemed to be in one area, because they talk about Chicago as if that's the only place that happens. So apparently Chicago is the only place where black people live, because that's the only time they talk about it. I know there's high numbers there, and anybody who's listening, there's a lot of numbers in Chicago that has crime. But guess what? If you put a bunch of white people in the same area without resources, without income, it will be the exact same thing, and we'll be talking about white lives matter. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter. So all I'm saying is, how can we as people get over that hump of this? Because once we say Black Lives Matter, it becomes a stigma to us, once we say it, and then once people get on, like everyone's getting with it, then you start seeing all the other people who don't necessarily agree, have their points that they want to point out every single death that goes on around the community and saying, why are their lives not mattering? As if we're saying that, as if we're saying no lives matter. We're saying Black Lives Matter because, well, there's an issue here. So, and it's hard to try to communicate to people about this when their view is already instilled in them. Their view is already cemented in their mind because they've never experienced any of this. They never have to experience any of this. So they can say whatever they want to say, and they have a lot of backing on it. And so what do we do? Does the protest matter? Do we just stop protesting, or do we continue protesting? You know, I mean, the riots are going to follow whether we protest or not. The looting is going to be there whether we protest or not. But do we stop as a Black community and say, you know what? I know we're peacefully protesting, but I know they're trying to hijack it. But do we just stop, let them clear it all out, and then start back? Or do we keep it going? Or do we just keep going? You know, I know my point of view, but I want to know what, you know, Dante, what do you think we should do?
To be honest, I think that as I started seeing, like, as far as the news, I haven't really heard a lot of riots now or a lot of looting. It seems like it's kind of calmed down a little bit. So that's definitely a good thing. Personally, I feel like there was a lot of people that were, like Jarrell said, that was not in the community, that was from outside of the community, and they were the ones that's doing it. Whether, you know, somebody put them up to it, or, you know, if they were just, you
Opportunists.
know, seeking opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, but at the end of the day, whenever you have something like this that's going on, and you are standing for something that you believe in, and then you have a group of other people that don't believe that you are right, or they feel like you should, you know, stay in your lane and not say stuff, or, you know, for instance, you think about Cap, you know, when he did what he did, you know, protesting peacefully, which, you know, every American would say, you know, that's the right thing to do, is to protest peacefully. But when he did it, the first thing people were saying, at first they didn't even notice he was doing it until a news reporter said something. Then once they said something, then everybody started, oh, you're being disrespectful to the flag, you're being disrespectful to the military. And so I feel like whether you do it or not, if you're going to protest, you're always going to have something that's going to be said that's going to be negatively going against you because of what's going on and what people think and how people feel. Then you have a bunch of people that feel like you should do it this way. And but what I think people fail to realize is that a protest is not supposed to be something that you can just sit back and enjoy. It's supposed to make you uneasy. It's supposed to make your hair in the back of your neck stand up. You know, that's what it's supposed to do, because if it's not doing that, then people can just be like, oh, okay, they just doing that thing again. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
So but I think they should keep doing it. You know, if people feel like that it's working, which I think it is, and it's proved in the past that it does work, I think they should keep doing it. You know, but I would say that, you know, only thing I would like to see a little bit more is just to have it to be a little bit more unified, which is hard because you have a bunch of people. But I just think that if they're going to do it, it needs to be just like in the Bible, how it talks about the people, the Babylonians were trying to build that ladder to go to heaven. And I feel like if everybody gets on one accord, and if everybody's on one page, I think it'll be more effective. Just like how it was with the Million Man March and all the stuff that Martin Luther King did. Like, it wasn't like something like, you know, people just put up on Facebook. It was like, hey, we about to go downtown. Because then now you don't know what people thinking. You don't have no direction. I think they need to, you know, if they're going to do it, which I'm all for, just meet up and discuss on what you're trying to do. You know, make sure everybody is at least on the same page. So then when you do go out, you don't have that kind of stuff, because you'll be able to see who's there for the right reason and who's not.
Yeah. Leadership is the biggest thing for that. I mean, you have to have leadership. You know, that's my belief. I mean, I just think we're lacking leadership and the act as far as activists. I mean, we have some there, but we don't know what their agendas are. Um, you know, when we had Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, you know, Black Panther Party, you know, all these other leaders had agendas, you know, whether it was right or wrong or what you felt about it, but they had an agenda, and the people followed them because they had agendas that were mapped out. Right now, we're thrown into things because we're thinking that we're trying to get better and not need these situations. You don't need this. We're going to have, you know, public figures, you know, or officials like politicians to help us get our agendas approved and stuff like that, the things that we want. We assume that we're at a society where we're civil, so we don't need civil rights activists in 2020. So that's one thing that we're lacking in that situation. We have people that are very strong and they go out for their and they're local and localized and everything, and they do very well. And those protests are getting washed up through the media because they're showing the horrific part. And the problem with that is that no one's going to back that if everyone is not on that. You know, Martin Luther King had a big following because not only was it blacks that were following him, but it was whites. But the only reason they followed him is because he was talking about nonviolence. You get what I'm saying? And he spoke about doing something nonviolence, and he put himself as reverend. You know what I'm saying? So they felt, okay, he's gonna be a good leader for the community. And I'm not knocking that part. That's a great thing to have. And we do need more spiritual leaders to help us because these people right now are lost. And I mean, watching that video is traumatic. And there's going to be a lot of post-traumatic stress disorders, syndromes, and symptoms that's going to be showing up later on for kids, you know, mothers, fathers, you know, brothers and sisters, and not for all races because of watching these videos and just watching everything going on with COVID and everything. And when you don't have the proper leadership to direct you in the right path, whether it's spiritual, whether it's, you know, on the worldly level or anything like that, you go everywhere, you go anywhere, anything can follow. That's how it's easy for the riots to start, because the people that were there protesting were in smaller numbers. And even though they had bigger numbers, some of those people were there out of emotion. They weren't there out of commitment purpose. And just like we know with anything, you need commitment for it, because it's not one of those things that's going to stay. You know, you're not going to make any moves by being emotional for one day and going out there. You got to be out there every single day until something changes. And we've had changes, but we just need more leadership showing up more. And maybe they have to make their own platform. Stop relying on these media sources that are, you know, they're looking for dollars, you know, and only thing that sells is chaos. I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, war sells. And if you ain't fighting overseas and we're fighting here, somebody's making some money, you know?
Yeah.
So and that's and the reason why I want to talk to you guys is because I'm on my spiritual walk. You know, I'm trying to grow my faith, and this, as I was talking to Dante earlier, I believe faith doesn't bend. I think it just breaks, or it just doesn't exist. It can be thin, but it's easy to break. But it doesn't bend. You don't bend your faith towards something else. It just breaks and it just doesn't have it anymore. So my faith broke during this part. Just seeing this because I was just frustrated. You know, I was like, "Where's God?" But then I thought about it, it's like I don't have a close connection with like a spiritual leader or say a faith, someone in faith that I can just talk to about that situation. Because as we talk about grown men, we don't want to talk about our weaknesses all the time. You know, we want to talk about our strengths, the things that's going to make us strong or make us look like we're the man. So when it comes to faith, I'm just up at arms at times with it because I don't know. You know, when I hear these people keep getting killed, it could be me. You know, then I ask the question, and I do that. Why would God allow these people to prosper who has enslaved us, who has killed, raped, and all these things over time, and we continue to go through these same cycles of oppression, whether it be on a physical level, spiritual level, financial level, mental health, in those levels. Why do we continue to go through those things? And it makes me question, am I following the right path? You know, and But then God shows up, opens a door, or opens a live up with two people, having a conversation. I'm in the middle of work, not even looking for Facebook, and all of a sudden it shows up, and I'm like, oh, there's a live when you people talking, and I'm like, oh, well, there's God right there. So I look at that and say, okay, if that God that I believe in shows up in that particular point, maybe he's telling me to do something more with my time versus waiting for someone else to do. So, that's what catapulted this growing men too thing. I mean, I was already doing something else with it, and I was like, no, I need to put faith into it. And then of course a girl will tell me, she says, well, you should have had that in the first place. So so but and listening to you guys talk about that made me realize that there was so much I was missing from the actual situation, that I was realizing that these people out there protesting are souls that can be saved. And I'm not trying to turn this into a church saving thing, but it's faith is the foundation of a lot of things that's going to save the Black community. It's going to save the white community. It's going to save America if we have faith in the right things, you know what I'm saying? And right now we have faith in a broken system, and we're hoping that that system gets fixed by our protesting. But there's nothing backing that. There's no foundation on that, because as we see based on our history, our protest only went so far. We had to make the country give us civil rights, give us rights to be human. So if we have to make them do that, why would they want to? Why would they want equality? So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't know if people, were ready for equality. I think I saw a little bit of a difference this time. I'll tell you, I just was at a men's Bible study this week, and we're doing the book of Jonah, and something really kind of jumped out at me. We were doing the second chapter. Well, just talking from the first chapter to second chapter, obviously everybody knows the story of Jonah, what happened. But what kind of hit me was Jonah failed to listen to God's command of what he wanted him to do. He goes, gets on a boat, does his own thing. They wake him up. He tells them, throw me over, fish, all that. But what people fail to realize is there was God in that. And people think, okay, Jonah just decided not to listen to God, right? But let's take it a step further. He decided not to listen to God, but what did God do? God could have said, no, I'm going to do something earlier. No. He let him do what he was going to do. Why? Because I think he interceded into the other people that were on the boat. Because the clear thing that we know is that they acknowledged Jonah's God. They acknowledged Jonah's God. So all this and that, and he still goes and does what he's supposed to do. But on his way, God says, okay, I know you're going to turn away from me, but I'm going to use that as an opportunity to save some more people. And I didn't even realize that. I was just so focused on the story of Jonah and him not listening. God made a storm, and, Jonah had to get off. And I thought it was all about Jonah. But even in that moment, God still used Jonah to wisen up. And again, we don't know the full story of what happens to those guys when they go back, but they acknowledged him. So we don't know how many more people. So I hate when, a life has to be lost, for us to come back to Christ and us to come back to it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, that's what we need to do, because Christ heals, and he can heal our heart. He can heal Caucasian heart. He can heal a Mexican heart. It doesn't matter who you are. And I think that's what we have to get back to, because as Christians, we're taught to love. And if we are doing what we are called to do, then I'm not saying injustice won't happen, because there are people that don't follow, but everybody else is going to be on the same page. Yeah. And somewhat like it is now, where you see a lot of people now coming out and talking and supporting Black people.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is great, where you didn't see that so much in the past. Do
Yeah.
I love what some of the NFL has done and some of the other, big sports have done? Nah, okay, I appreciate it. But at the end of the day, it's not them, it's us. It's the common people, the everyday people. And if we can get us all together and start to come together for a cause, I think, you're talking about something amazing.
Yeah.
So I think Christ has to be in this, because watching what's happened and seeing the hearts that have been changed, there's people on my Facebook timeline that, like, man, I didn't even realize I had white privilege. Oh, I
Mhm.
took myself, I took the time to educate myself and watch the 13th. I took time to educate myself, and now I'm like, whoa. So even that, it's like, okay, there's some good coming out of this. But I think it's us as the Black community that has to keep that conversation going. We
Yeah.
can't let the conversation stop as it did with Colin Kaepernick,
Yeah.
because the conversation was there for a brief time
Mhm.
and then it got let go. We can't let that go. And we got to continue. We have to educate now. We've done our part to make people realize. Now we have to now go educate.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Jarrell, I would say that I agree with almost everything you said, man. You definitely said a lot. I mean, as I sit here and I think about it, um, like I said in the post on the live video that we did, I feel that we have to we have to start the conversation in the church. Um, if we don't have the conversation in the church, because at the end of the day, that's a place where, and notice I said where we should not look at the color of anybody's skin. We should all look at each other as brothers and sisters in Christ. That's how it should be in the church. And so if we can have these conversations anywhere, it should be in the church first.
Mhm.
However, there's a lot of people that, as you said, they don't want to give up, that privilege that they have. I was talking to one of my cousins. I think it was Ricky, maybe, and he was saying that if you have maybe it was you, Byron. I can't remember, but if you have a head start of 400 years, and then on top of that, then we say, all right, you know what? Sorry, let me restart over. So if you have if you have a group of people that has a monopoly. So for instance, we'll use cable company. You have a cable company in town. You have a monopoly. There's nobody else that has a cable company, and another cable company wants to come in. That cable company ain't just gonna let them come in. They're gonna do everything they can to keep that power.
Yeah.
And the same thing there. Like, for the most part, not saying every white person, but there's a lot, especially the ones that have the power. They don't want to have to give up anything, because now that means I'm taking away some of my resources to give you,
Mhm.
and who wants to do that? And I think that's where the problem is, because we're looking at it from a carnal standpoint. If you're a Christian, you shouldn't look at it like that. We should all be on one equal playing field, and and what God has for you is going to be for you. So nobody can take nothing away from you, anyways. But we just it's a hard issue. It's something that we have to deal with uh, uh, as people of God. That because I still believe that I still know people that believe that white men, a black man can't marry a white woman. Like, it's forbidden because it said it in the Bible. and because they go back to, you know, where God told them not to mix with a certain group of people, and so people still hold on to that nowadays, and it's like, wow, that's crazy. Because now, so basically, what you're saying is, you know, when we get to heaven, there's going to be a white session, it's going to be a black session, it's going to be a Hispanic session, Asian session back there, but nowhere in the Bible it says that. You know, we all want. The Bible says there's no Greek, no Jew, no Gentile, no male, no female. So that means that everybody is going to be looked at, and you are not going to be able to tell a difference. You may know that. I believe that you're going to know the person that you're talking to, but you're not going to. It's the color difference, or even if we do have color, I'm speculating now, but even if we did have color, it wouldn't even matter. So we got to get to the point that it doesn't matter, because, you know, like it definitely does stink, you know, to have to go through life and every day you're reminded that you're just a little black boy or you're a black girl,
Yeah.
you know. And then on top of that too, like, you know, then, you know, I think the other thing is too is the reason why people don't want to say nothing, especially like the pastors and stuff. You know, they don't want to get that money taken away, or they don't want people to leave the church because they talking about something that make them uncomfortable. But the last time I checked, that's all Jesus did was talk about stuff that made people
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um,
He
so
put the he made everything uncomfortable.
yes, and that's the thing. We have to get to the point that we have to get to the point that uncomfortable is comfortable, because that's where you grow. You
Yeah.
don't grow when you're comfortable. But everybody wants to be comfortable. Everybody wants to be, and I speak for myself because we had a conversation today about, you know, me uh, potentially having to do something I don't want to do. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to do it,
Okay.
but
It's
you
coming.
know, that's at the end of the day. What I do realize is whatever God is calling you to do, or whatever God is gonna make you, or not make you, but whatever God is calling you to do, or whatever God wants you to do, is going to put you in a position that you're going to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
Because if you're comfortable all the time, then you can look at you and say, I did this, I did that.
Yes. Yes.
But when you're in a place of uncomfortableness, you can't do that. And I think that's where a lot of people, they don't want to be uncomfortable. People don't want to. I really feel like a lot of times, I think I said this to Jarrell and Fave the other day, is that people are more offended about being called a racist than being racist.
Yeah.
And like
Because
that makes no
how dare you
sense.
call me this? How dare you call me this? No, I am this, but you shouldn't call me out. You
Exactly.
know.
But but we as a church, man, it's just like I said, man. I get it, you know. Uh, but when you're at that kind of level in the church, like right is right, wrong is wrong. You have to be able to call out what's right and what's wrong,
Mhm.
regardless on who's doing it, who's not doing it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be mean spirited about it. You
Yeah.
can you can do it in love,
Yeah.
because that's what the Bible tells us to do it in love. You know, is that we hold people accountable. You know, especially, you know, if we're supposed to be rocking with them, you know, we should hold them accountable. We should let them know. We have a lot of brothers and sisters that are white that will uh, they're in their own circles and they hear something that they know not right, and they won't say nothing. And the Bible says that to know what is right but you don't do it is a
It's
sin.
yeah.
And so if you doing stuff like that, you know, because I mean, being racist, that's a hateful act. That's evil. Um, because you know, but I just think that we have to get back to the church. And the leaders of the church, the people that say they pastors, they have to do a better job, especially when you have black people in your congregation,
Yeah.
um, because you have to be able to be there for not just, you know, the Hispanic or the white, the black. You got to be there for everybody.
Mhm.
And to be honest, looking at that video and just looking at how things have been going on, it's like, man, you're not even compassionate about, like, you have no compassion for what just happened. And like Jarrell said earlier, doesn't matter what he did. I mean, you should still have compassion.
Mhm.
Like, I would see people that would get upset about a dog that happened to an animal, and they be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that." But then when they get to a person, oh, what did he do? Why
Yeah.
he in that situation?
We need to go with his history.
Like,
Hold on. We need to look at his history to make sure that he wasn't a criminal first, because if he's a criminal, we know he deserves this. Now, well, hold on. I don't want him to die, but if he does die, I'm okay with it because he was a criminal. But if
which is wrong.
this dog got killed, doesn't matter what he was trying to do, he should have never been killed. And we're gonna have to send you to jail forever because you killed the dog. You know,
Yeah.
and I understand. And Malcolm X said this a long time ago. And it really is not a long time ago. I just say that to be sarcastic because
It seems like
it's he says America doesn't have a race problem. America has a human race problem. The problem is that they don't have the compassion for humans. They have the compassion for themselves when they're needed, but anybody that opposes their view is no longer considered a human in their eyes, if you think about it.
yeah,
As soon as a situation goes, whether there's another country, whether there's another nationality or anything like that, they immediately go, shut them down. Don't support them. Don't do this. Whatever it is. But when they're on their team, they praise them. They want to make sure you see that they're on their team. But as soon as anything that sounds a little different, they be like, hold on. We're no longer messing with them. We're not messing with them. You know what I'm saying? And that's, it's arrogance, and it's just an issue that's going to be there because it's humans. But I would think if the majority of humans say that they're Christian in this country, because as you know, election time, everyone's Christian because they vote Christian value ways and stuff like that. And I'm not going against any particular party because I don't like either one. So my party is down the middle where it helps everybody. But anyways, if you say you have Christian values and you do something or have a bunch of people that identify with what you're saying and they have evil ideas or evil mindsets, you have to check where you are. Are you get what I'm saying? Because
yeah,
the people who were disciples of Jesus were once considered criminals, but when they got with Jesus, they had to change their ways in order to continue with Jesus. You get what I'm saying? They had to continue. They continued on, but Jesus taught them a way to change those habits. So if we're going to be saying we're Christian and we have a whole congregation or we have a whole following or we have anything that's associated with us, and the majority of it is looking the opposite way for human life, then we got to check ourselves. Are we teaching the right message? Are we displaying, or are we supporting the right message? Because if I told you today that I only want Black people to work for my businesses and stuff like that, that will alienate a big part of the world. That doesn't make sense, right? You know what I'm saying? Now, if I only had something that was for Black people, then that would make sense. You know what I'm saying? But if I
yeah,
have something that's available for everyone, and I say I want to do that, then that makes me not necessarily racist, but it makes me a discriminatory person, you know, or a prejudiced person if I'm saying I can't only do that. So that's just that little bit. So imagine on a global scale or nation scale or national scale, if the police is the force and the people who are doing wrong are defended, even with video, and the people who work next to them are okay with that, then does that make them cops good? You get what I'm saying? Because I know you got to keep your job. I understand you got to pay your bills. But at the end of the day, if you're held to this higher authority and you have power over other people, and you know there's wrongdoing in your agency, and you continue to work in that agency, are you going to change them or are they going to change you? You get what I'm saying?
yeah,
So as a Christian, we should be trying to change people and mindset. Let me say people. Let me say this. We should be trying to change ourselves enough to where we're an example for others to follow. So if I'm out there protesting, I'm not out there looting also. If I'm out there protesting, I see somebody do some looting, I'm going to address that. And my group is going to address that. You know what I'm saying? People who are with me. But if I don't have a leader out there with me protesting and no one's to address any of those things, it's just reckless, you know. And although it's a great cause, we have to get to the point that we have to say, let's step back, because everyone's hijacked this whole thing and cause it to be worse than what we were trying to do, and say this: I know this could be better. Let's get some true leadership out there and let's rally for every state or however many states they want to do it. And we'll protest these days, this time. So that way that the police force knows, the mayor knows, everyone knows. And although that seems like it's softening the blow, but you're creating an environment of saying, I'm going to pay attention to these people because they're doing it the right way. And you can't say, well, maybe they're out there looting, maybe they're out there rioting. You can't ever say that, you know. And that may not be the right way. That's just my point of view of it. You know, I'm not going to say my point of view is right, but I just think that we should have transparency. As if you're going to be a protester, have transparency. You're protesting, we know what you're protesting, have transparency, you know, and the same thing for police. I'm not saying the police got to have transparency. Hey, this is the video. This is what happened. Send it. Investigation. Outside investigation. Let's have somebody else who's not in the police force investigating this, you know, and then boom, go from there. You know, because the FBI is just another police force. So I'll let you know that, you know. I ain't trying to be funny, but you know, you got the local police and you got the nation police.
Yep.
Pick your poison. You know. So we did touch base on the protest riots, and we touched base on God, which I always hesitate in my mind when I talk about faith when I'm trying to reach mass people. And that's the enemy, I know, because before I will always say, well, I don't want to offend anybody. But then I thought about it. As this stuff continues to unfold, no one cares who they offend when they hold up Confederate flags addressing that it's supposed to be heritage, you know, but the only heritage that it follows is hurting people that look like me and you. So I started thinking, I was like, well, my Jesus wouldn't be just sitting around chilling, you know, not talking about what he felt, you know. So I had to change my mindset of how I approach things and just approach it from faith and let God lead that part of it, because I know I'm far from the person to tell somebody about following anything. But what I do know is this: every time I followed what God was telling me to do, it went the right way. Even though I had struggles, I had a guideline, I had a foundation to fall back on. Every time I went back my way, it fell miserably, you know. When I started, before COVID happened, before COVID-19 started, and I had all planned for me, my business, how I was going to structure, what I was going to do, everything I was going to do. Now, keep in mind, I was saying it in my own power. My whole business structure, and this is funny. The reason why I left my job was to have, am I still on? Okay. The reason why I left my job was to have a faith-based business. You get what I'm saying? Can you guys still see me?
Yeah, you broke up.
Repeat that one more time.
Hold on. All right. The reason why I left my job was I was starting a faith-based business. My business is faith-based. That's my whole thing. I wanted to make sure that my faith grows and is embedded in that business. But you know, as you do in business, you get a little money, you want to make things happen, you start thinking of your own ways of doing things. You slowly push God out of it. You see what I'm saying? So I was like, oh, I'm glorifying God in it, but I really wasn't. I was doing this me. Oh, I did this. I made this happen. I made this happen. COVID-19 hit here, and I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, I mean, when I say I was getting ready to launch, the day they were shutting down stuff. And I had already been open, but I like to do my grand opening. And me and Dante talked about it, you know, and I was like, hey, this is crazy. But on the flip side, what it made me realize was this: even through my struggle, God still stayed with me and stayed like in the back of my mind saying, see, if you would have did this, you would have been already prepared for this situation. You know what I'm saying? But we're gonna go through this together and we're gonna come out on the other end. So now, nothing, I didn't skip a beat. COVID didn't change my life. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't going out like that anyways. I didn't go to clubs, I didn't go drinking, I didn't go, I was in the house. I was working from home. So when it came, it's the same business as I was. With that being said, it affected so many other people's lives. It made me open my heart to say, these are lost souls out here right now, whether it's a financial mindset, whether it's a spiritual mindset, whether it's a physical, all these are lost souls that can be saved. And we now have a better platform. COVID had everyone at attention to what? Internet, social media, all those things, right? Everyone's watching.
Mm-hmm.
This was the time to shine for Christianity. This was the time to shine. Through COVID, we got wide ranges of things going on. And I think what happened was, and this is where my heart felt, was that as leaders in the church, they didn't know how to respond to it. Some went live and did their things, but they weren't prepared for it. It's like, okay, was I prepared to do that kind of stuff? They weren't prepared for that kind of teaching. And what happens if they say they can't go back to churches? Although they're letting you go back, what happens if COVID comes back and they say, okay, we can't go back into those buildings? What do you do? Where does someone who's lost good faith grow faith? We can't tell them to turn to the Bible and open it up and just read it and call me. So I think platforms like this were already ready and available. And I think it's just that as a Christian, it's our time to take this opportunity to grow and to adapt to these changes. And also, we may have to usher in some new leaders, Dante, some new spiritual leaders out there, people who
J-Rail.
but and I think this is what I'm seeing when I see people out protesting, when I see people out, because we're making changes, we're having changes, but I see that we're doing it on a different scale than what we used to do. And so if that's changing, if that method is changing how people are, then why wouldn't it work for faith? You know what I'm saying? Instead of seeing fights and death on social media, why don't we show God in real life? And I'm not talking about just, playing praise songs, and that's great. I'm not talking about just reading from the Bible, that's great. But showing people live everyday life with the mindset and the heart set of Jesus and God. Why not do that? Because if you think about it, everyone's made up of just the same stuff. We do the same things over and over. You go to work, you come home, and you spend time with your family. Those are important things. Why do we have those values? Because we embedded in ourselves those values, or someone taught us that. Why not teach those same things through different methods? I mean, I don't have a church home, and I can't see myself going to a church that doesn't talk about these issues. But I can go to an online church who I know talks about these issues. You get what I'm saying? And I can get the same amount of energy, the same amount of teaching without walking through their door. But we also need closer fellowship. So someone who's close by, as they call them, house churches, stuff like that, those kind of things can grow back, So that's just my point of view of the next steps beyond the protesting, because once we get past protesting, we have to live at the house. We got to be at home enforcing these new policies or teaching our kids how to live in a world where this may happen. Again, this may be the thing. How do you teach them to go around that? How do you teach them to be better than that? So, I mean,
That's the big question. That's the big question. I think, our young people, I hate saying young people because I'm still young, but, you know, just like when it was said to us, you guys are our future when I was young. And, these young people are going to be the future, our future leaders and, our future police chiefs and deputies. And so, these are the people that, can make a huge impact. Um, it's amazing to see what can happen when God is in something. When God is in a situation, it's amazing to see. Um, what I think we as people fail to realize is like the small, what people view as small miracles are really large miracles. The Bible takes a miracle and it gets magnified because it's in the Bible. But how do you explain a mom that a car's sitting on the son and they lift up a 600-pound car to remove their son?
Yeah.
So there's miracles all over the place. And I think God can do amazing things. One, we got to honor him. One, we got to glorify him. We got to praise him. We got to talk about him. We can't be shy to be Christians in America. I feel like that was at a point, and it kind of still is. Um, I can get in trouble for calling somebody out of their name that may not sexually be on the same fence that I'm on. But
Mhm.
yet, if somebody says something about my Christianity, no issue, no problem.
Exactly.
Now, why is it bad for me? Because I believe in my faith that you should be a certain way. But that's bad. But the second you call me one out my name, that's okay. It's okay to call me a Negro. It's okay. It's perfectly fine.
Hmm.
Secondly, why is it okay for you guys to come at Christianity? And I think that puts Christians, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little scared because if I talk about something controversial, if I do something controversial, what's going to be the backlash?
Yeah.
Well, listen, if I know God's got my back, it don't matter what the backlash will be
Exactly.
because God's going to be right there, arm in arm, and we're going to handle this thing.
Yeah.
So, as as you were talking about, I think that's what we have to be bold in our faith. We have to be bold in our faith because the Bible tells us to. And that's what is going to happen is people are going to challenge a Christian. People are going to challenge us as the church and see what we are going to do and how we are going to react. When we back down as the church, they step up.
Yeah.
When we back down as a church, they step up. And I think that's what we're talking about is that we as a church, we got to get right. We got to get right. We got to be able to take on these hard conversations and do it, like Dante said, with love.
Yeah.
Let's give love. You
Yeah.
can give me hate, but I'm going to give you love.
Yeah.
So just just all that being said, I really hope that conversations get started, like Dante says, start in the church. I hope they get started in the church, and then I hope they start to leak out so that other people get to see the love that we have and now want to take part in it and now want to share in it. So it's not just that we share the same views that, there needs to be some sort of racial equality. Now we're sharing the same views on a Christian level
Yeah.
and trying to get on the same page there. And I think that is where you're going to see real change, one, and monumental movement in this racial injustice in the treatment of African Americans. I think that's where you're going to see it is when we can get those people on the same page because now that's, I'll call it faith deep, not just skin deep.
Yeah.
Skin deep, you can tell me what you want to tell me.
Hmm.
But when that faith comes in there, right is right and wrong is wrong. That's how it should be because the Bible tells us that. So I think that takes it to an elevated level and allows us to connect on a deeper level. Um, but God is good. God is faithful. It breaks my heart to see what has to happen in order for change to start. George Floyd isn't going to be the first. Wasn't the first name on the list
Hmm.
of all the stuff that has happened, and he's not going to be the last name on the list of stuff
Yeah.
that happens. Um, Unfortunately, but God is always good and God is always faithful, and as long as we continue to seek Him, if my number is ever called where God takes me, but the cause of what happens to me brings greater good, by all means, you know, God knows our number. And again, I for the family and for all those affected, it's an awful situation. But I hope that we don't just let his name die in vain.
Yeah.
We take that and use that and put it to positive and get to a point to where, you know what, they say you don't want to be a name when they come out with a street, or you don't want to be a name when they come out with a disease, Lou Gehrig's disease. You don't want to be that name.
Mhm.
I wouldn't mind being that name if it causes a culture change in
Yeah.
America to where equality now happens. Martin Luther King. Who wouldn't say that I wouldn't be a Martin Luther King, a Malcolm X, who created change
Mhm.
and dedicated their life to that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard to see lives lost, but we know it's not going to be the last life lost.
Yeah.
But let's just not let it go in vain.
Yeah. All right, Dante, you closing
Um,
benediction.
um, man, I really don't have anything else to say, man. You said it all, Jarrell. I mean, my prayer is that, you know, that my white brothers and sisters in Christ know that, you know, we love you guys, uh and you know, we all need each other. And at the end of the day, uh we want to feel as if, you know, our lives are important, you know. Far as I think, Brian, we were talking about it earlier today, far as like the Black Lives Movement and how people want to say that, you know, all lives matters. I mean, even gosh, what's his name? Dabo Sweeney. He wore a Football Matters shirt the other day,
Mm.
and it's like, you know, it just shows that, you know, some people think that, you know, it's they take light of the situation. You know, it's just over 400 years of oppression. You know, what, 50 years, I believe, of Jim Crow law.
Jim Crow. Yeah.
Then you have even now, and you know, and a lot of people just take light of the situation, whether they are, you know, misguided, you know, not educated, and you know. But we just want people to know, man. Listen, we as Christians, if you're a Christian, you should have love for any and everybody. The Bible say even love your neighbors and your enemies. You know, so we just want to feel like we're being respected, feel like we're needed, we're wanted. You know, but until that happens, you know, we gonna have to keep doing, you know, what we need to do as
Yeah.
People.
Yeah. You
And
said exactly right. We can love our enemies, we can love our neighbors, but there's always going to be a pushback if that love that we're trying to give is being roadblocked by a lot of hatred or a lot of evil ways, because you can't get the love through with all those roadblocks. So we may have to push, you know, and the protesting is one point. You know,
yeah,
financially, we have to focus on those things. There's a lot of things we need to bridge the gap of equality. And the thing is this, and I want this to go to everyone. Black people aren't looking for more than equality. If they were, the world would be a lot different. And I think that should actually sit in your hearts, because as much as they say that we're so violent and evil and whatever it is, we have yet to look for retribution for our ancestors, or our, no, I'm gonna say ancestors, our families, because, you know, I can talk about my grandma's situation where she had KKK at her house when she was a child. So, you know, we're not looking for retribution, or we're not looking for revenge. We're looking for just the basic equality that you promised, you know, in your Constitution, that, you know, when we were free, hey, let us do our thing. But if you keep holding us back or pretending that our issues don't exist, there's going to be a push, and everyone's not going to follow the same rule that we're trying to push towards or help people see through God. And then that's unfortunate because that's loss of lives over something so simple as, hey, you're human and I'm a human. Let's be human together. You know what I'm saying? We can figure out the rest later, but I'm gonna treat you like a human. That's it.
Yeah.
You know? So I just say that to anybody, you know, who thinks that we're pushing the Black Lives Matter as a cop out or a victim situation. Because I never thought less of any white, Hispanic, or anything person by saying Black Lives Matter. I just want you to understand that we have some issues that need to be addressed that have for people who have authority. Let's address those issues. And we're still focusing on our issues in crime and our issues in poverty and stuff like that. Those are going to be handled also. But if you continue to push back, unfortunately, everyone doesn't talk like us. Everyone doesn't feel like us, you know? And I'm not trying to be funny, but unfortunately, everyone is not going to feel that way. And they're going to have a different approach to what's going on, you know? So that's my view of it, you know? But I appreciate you guys coming on and talking to me about this. I did not expect it to be as much faith talk as it was. I'm glad it did because it put a lot of things in perspective, because I had that at the bottom of my list of things to talk about, to wrap up everything. But when I start talking about it, it got in the middle, and it made me realize that I can't put God at the end of its situation. I got to put him at the top, throughout, and the bottom for it to actually work well. And it made me realize that in order for us as people to grow, whether you like that or not, whether you feel that way today, you're going to have some aspect of God in your life in order for it to actually start moving towards the levels or moving towards the direction you want to go. And that's point blank. Now, there's going to be people that are going to oppose you or think that this is the wrong method, you know, and that's fine. But if you stay with your faith, it'll work out. It'll work out, you know, and that's what I believe. So I thank my family for being very proactive in making sure I had an understanding of God, you know, early, you know.
And the other thing too is that
Hey.
you know, just by saying that, you know, if we the church and you know you follow God, you know, that's not going to be the end all be all. There's still going to be issues because
Yeah.
you know Satan is running around, you know, and he knows his days are up and it's drawing near, and so it's going to be stuff that's going to happen. So you know that's not to say that everything's just going to be kumbaya. You know,
Yeah.
you're going to have issues. So keep that in mind because I know a lot of times people, you know, they're like, oh, I go to God, I get saved, and then everything is just going to be perfect. Not true. Not true. I mean, it probably, in my opinion, it almost gets a little bit
It gets
more hectic.
rough. It gets worse.
So
But you have something to fall back on. That's always my
yeah,
thing. I didn't have
absolutely.
anything to fall back on but myself. So
Sorry, Jarrell. What you about to say, Jarrell?
Nah, I'm just gonna say I appreciate being part of this. I mean,
oh yeah.
you know, anytime that I think we can come together as men, you know, heads of households, and you know, who knows? It's just awesome just to come together and just talk. So I appreciate being here.
Yeah, and that's my focus. My focus is to try to touch on topics that grown men, because I'm gonna say grown men because it has to be grown men to talk about, because there's gonna be some issues that won't resolve on these platforms, but they open up the minds to have a conversation about. And one of my other episodes is going to be about how I was almost a Candace Owens, you know, and that one's going to be a little rough, you know, because I could have been that person, you know. And if you don't know who Candace Owens is, look her up, and you'll probably understand what I'm saying. I
You
mean,
don't want to know.
you know, when it is what it is. But I could have always almost been that, you know, and I'll just leave it at that. That'll be one of the next episodes. But thank you guys. and I'm gonna let you guys get back to your families because you know that's what it's all about. I gotta go cook some food.
Cook some food. You about to go eat them chitlins. Yeah.
Oh, gotta cook some food. But do it, yeah. I appreciate it, y'all.
Ain't no shit.
That was some good. That was some good conversation. I really didn't expect it to go to the Jesus talk early on. I was like, but I like that it did. But you know, and I realized this in the beginning. Oh, this is. Let me tell you what.
Somehow it always ends up there.
Let me tell you something. So you can tell Dante this because he don't want to listen. He's trying to deny it. I see Dante as being a leader or minister or something. He don't want to. He don't want to hear it. But he
I
has.
told him that a long time ago.
So we're just gonna keep on him because I tell you this: when Dante calls, it's always at the op. Since what last year before you moved
So
down.
what, November when I came down?
Yeah, since that moment, it's been nothing but every time we talk, it was always confirmation of something going on that pushes me towards God, but also opens up other doors and mindsets for me to think about Him and what can better His situation. Every single time, I'll be thinking about something. Dante will call. So,
What you doing?
Dante, you better stop going backwards, boy. You better start coming. You better start coming. Dante acting like